Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic? Let's do it. What's the scariest near-death experience you have ever had? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Home invasion. Hanging out at a friend's house with a couple of people on the back porch, drinking, smoking, listening to music, enjoying a nice summer evening. My best friend, a drug dealer at the time, told us he was going to the local metro stop, 10 minutes walk from the house, to make a deal and he'd be back. Well, the guys he sold to followed him back to us. I still remember thinking in my drunken haze, why are these guys wearing gloves and masks in summer? I look at their hands again, and both guys have pistols. They had all of us lay face down on the porch. They grabbed our phones first and ran our pockets. I missed my car keys, thank God, which were parked in front of the house. They were pressing the shit out of my friend, pistol in his face, screaming, "Where's the rest of the money and dope?" He was being honest by telling them the half ounce and a couple $100 were all he had. I thought they were going to kill him right then and there. While we were lying there, one guy told us we were all going to die tonight. I believed it and came to terms with my shitty death pretty quickly. They finally told us to count to 100 and then we could get up. I had nightmares for years of people chasing me and wanting to kill me. Don't hang out with drug dealers, y'all. My period almost killed me. I had a very, very heavy period. Towards the 9-day mark, I was bedridden. I tried to walk to the bathroom and fainted out of weakness. I busted my knee. I went to the ER and no one really took me seriously. I even heard my nurse say right outside my curtain, "I can't believe she's here for her period. I have people here who are actually sick." Blood tests came back. It turns out I'd lost like half my blood and needed a transfusion. I was basically bleeding to death. I never got a diagnosis. They put me on birth control and sent me home. Very scary. I, 62 female, woke up from a sleep or taking a nap on the couch in a pool of blood around 22 years ago. It was clearly menstrual, or at least was coming from my vaginal area. I called a friend to come stay with my kids, 5 and 11 years old, who were asleep at the time. I took a bath towel, rolled it up, and stuck it between my legs. The blood was gushing like a bathtub faucet. I lived less than 2 miles from a hospital, so when my friend showed up, I drove myself there. I parked near the emergency room entrance and waddled in, with the rolled up towel between my legs and leaving a trail of blood behind me. You know you're in trouble when they whisk you back into the treatment room before taking your identification or payment information. Blood was gushing from me, and I started to fade. I said, "Tell my children I love them." I remember they hooked me up to IV blood in both arms, and nurses were squeezing the bags to get it into me faster. I was certain I was dying. I was divorced and had been celibate for a long time, so I was certain this was not related to a miscarriage. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room. My OBGYN had been notified, and he had no idea what had happened. I was prescribed a medication that would stop any bleeding that might happen in the future and discharged. I was terrified when my next period started, but I never had issues again. I thought I was dying at the time. I was so scared for my kids. I was, I think, 4 or 5 years old and living in a war-torn country. When the bombings happened, we hide. When it stops, we go out and do business as usual. On one such day, Mom and I were out, and suddenly there were sirens. And in the moment you said, "Cookie," the streets were cleared. Everyone hid. We were left in the middle of the street, not sure where to go. So my mom pulled me behind one building, and we lay in a whole field of nettles. Mom covered my head with something. I could hear bombs hitting the roof of the building. Pieces of it were falling all over. I heard them but didn't see them. I was not afraid, but more like I had made peace that I was going to die. Then I saw a leaf caught in a cobweb, and I asked my mom to fetch it for me. There was a spider there as well, so I was afraid to do it myself. My mom gave me the leaf. The poor spider ended up hanging from it. I watched it climb back up and rest on the leaf. Silly thing, I know. I don't remember how long we were lying there, and I don't remember how we got out. I remember seeing photos of that building later on, and one side of the building, the one behind me and my mom's back, had collapsed. I also remember my legs being red and full of blisters from Nettles. I accidentally mixed some medications I shouldn't have. Yes, it was genuinely an accident, which is why it scared the shit out of me. I've never felt so terrified. My blood pressure plummeted to 70/45 by the time EMSA arrived and was rapidly dropping. It was honest to God that I could feel my soul leaving my body. I was rushed to the ER, where I hallucinated for hours. Scared the shit out of me. I was present at a mass shooting. I was on a first date at a bar in the hip district of my hometown. We were sitting on the patio that faces the busy street, and we were people watching. It was almost 1 a.m. on a Saturday night. The date was going well, so I just went for it and gave the girl a kiss. We were both getting hungry, so I asked her if she'd like to grab some tacos at the cart that was directly across the street from us. She looked me in the eye and said, "Let's get out of here and just go back to your place." In that moment, that's all I needed to hear. So I went inside and paid quickly. My receipt said 1:02 a.m. We left and started walking down the street to my car. Heartbreakingly, at 1:06 a.m., a gunman, covered in body armor with semi-automatic weapon, emerged from a nearby alleyway and opened fire on a group of people, the people waiting in line at the taco cart. In under 2 minutes, he killed 8 and injured 26 people. We saw it all happen, and I pulled my date into an alley alcove, which is outdoor seating for another restaurant, and we hid under the table until the police, who regularly walk and patrol the street on the weekends, shot and killed the shooter. We saw people die. Bullets came our way, but luckily they didn't hit us. The whole thing was over in about 90 seconds. It's been a few years, but I still get nervous in large crowds. That part of town was such a safe space for me, and it never felt like something like this could happen, but it does, and it happens a lot. That's one of those moments that truly is kismet and tragic, obviously, for the people and families that were affected by that, but that you ended up not in that line, almost like it was meant to be. I was home alone eating cheese. Nice. I sucked it down my throat, and it stuck hard. As I was getting dizzy, all I could think of was that my cat was going to eat me if I died, and then I realized it wasn't fully blocked, and if I took a very slow breath, I could have a chance to cough it up. I got it up and thanked my lucky stars. As a result, my kids aren't allowed to eat choky foods while home alone. I'm terrified they'll choke with no one around. I overdosed on triple the lethal dose of muscle relaxants 10 years ago. It was pretty wild. I remember taking the medications and drinking half a bottle to chase. Then I woke up a week later in a hospital and fell on the ground because I couldn't walk anymore. And my bedside nurse fell asleep. Apparently, I went into cardiac arrest after having an insane seizure-type reaction in the ambulance. I don't remember any of it though. Ruptured ectopic pregnancy. I knew it had ruptured the moment I stepped out of the shower. It felt like knives inside of me. My husband rushed me to the ER. At the ER, they nearly sent me home because they couldn't find evidence of a rupture. Thankfully, the OBGYN on call swooped in the nick of time and got me rushed into emergency surgery at 3 a.m. I had to be intubated for the surgery because there wasn't enough time to let me fast. When I woke up, everyone had very grave expressions on their faces. It was apparently a huge ectopic that they caught just as it was rupturing. Had they sent me home like they originally planned, I probably would have bled out and died in my sleep. My wife and I went to the New York Comic Con years ago. We went outside to find a street vendor and got some halal kebabs. I ended up choking on a piece of lamb, completely blocked my airways so that I couldn't even make a sound. I gave the sign for choking to my wife, but she froze. It was a crowded city street, but let me tell you, I've never felt so isolated in my life. Fortunately, the vendor noticed and did the Heimlich on me. I was a lab tech at an industrial waste disposal company. I was cleaning up the lab and started dumping a sample in the waste bin. Huge chemical reaction, explosion, 19L waste container, about 6 inches from my face. It turns out someone hadn't properly labeled some waste made up in a mix of extremely strong acids, still unknown. So I couldn't breathe. My face, neck, chest, eyes, and arms were burning. My gloves disintegrated. Fortunately, the other lab worker had clocked out but hadn't left yet. I wasn't strong enough to pull the emergency shower switch. I'm still struggling with PTSD. Years ago, when I was a little asshole teenager, I was walking through downtown Houston with a friend when a homeless fella asked me for my Dr. Pepper. I told him to himself. He responded by pulling out a pistol and unloading the effing thing at us. Luckily, I had started running the second I saw him reaching for something because he came damn close to hitting me in the damn head. I still remember the way it sounded and felt for bullets to pass close by my head It's not something I'll ever forget. I got COVID right at the tail end of the Delta in November 21. I ended up spending 2 months in the hospital, a month in the ICU, and almost 2 weeks intubated in a coma. I had the talk with my family that I probably wouldn't make it. If I had gotten ill before the retrovirals came out, I would definitely be dead. I had to learn to swallow, grip, and walk again. I still have to walk using oxygen, and the CFS I have now means I'm very limited in what I can do from day to day. I am, however, still alive. I'm not sure if this is considered a near-death experience, but here we go. Story time. When I was 14, I had the flu, and it was going on for weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. And my dad kept on saying that it had passed though. Well, it kept getting worse and worse. So he took me to the clinic, and they told me that I had a collapsed lung that was caused by the coughing. I also have asthma, so it didn't help either. Yet the doctor told my dad to immediately take me to the hospital or else I would die. I was in the hospital for 3 to 4 weeks, and I was fine after that. I still have no idea what could have caused the collapsed lung. Coughing. I fell off a ski lift once. It was my dad and I on the lift, and we had just raised the bar as we were approaching the end station to get off. All I did was try to adjust myself to be a bit more forward in the seat so I could get off easier, and the slippery seat sent me flying off. Since it was close to the station, it wasn't a certain death fall distance, but there were also jagged rocks all around the station. Fortunately, I landed just short of them in a deep snowbank and was totally unhurt. If I had decided to adjust a second later, I probably wouldn't be here. I had a stomachache for a few weeks. I had told my doctor and was scheduled to have an EGD done to see if I needed to have my esophagus dilated, as I have a disease that causes scarring in it, so they just assumed that was the issue. I worked in the surgery department, where I was getting the procedure done as a nurse. I had scheduled myself as the last person for the day so I could work the shift and then clock out to do my own procedure and not have to take a bunch of PTO. On the day of the procedure, I worked my full shift, but I really did not feel good. My stomach really hurts. I was really nauseous. I was lightheaded. I just pushed through thinking it was because I was not able to eat and drink in preparation for the procedure. I woke up from the procedure to find lots of people around my bed, and I was told that I was being transferred to another hospital. I had multiple ulcers in my stomach, and one of them had ulcerated into an artery at some point that day. I was internally bleeding significantly, and I did not even know I was that close to death. I have had other times where near death has occurred and been scary, but in all cases it was obvious what was happening, car accidents, etc. This was the scariest for me though, because I just didn't know anything was that wrong with me, and it was the closest I ever came to dying. If I had not had that appointment already set, I probably would have gone to bed thinking I had a stomach bug and may not have gone to the hospital until it was too late. I was in the hospital for multiple days recovering and got a lot of follow-up to ensure that they healed. I was about 13 years old and rafting with my family and friends on a very easy flowing river. Somehow, the raft got pinned up against some underwater rocks and the current pushed against the raft enough to flip it upside down. Everyone else in the raft was thrown out except me. I was still inside the raft, but the raft had closed up like an upside down hot dog bun with me inside underwater. The pressure of the current kept the raft closed against the rocks with me inside. I kept trying to push the raft open so I could exit underwater and make it to the surface, but I wasn't strong enough. I thought I was going to die. I finally found a spot on the raft where the current wasn't as strong, I guess, and was able to open it enough to slip through the bottom and get to the surface. It was probably only a few seconds, but it seemed like forever. I never went rafting again. I nearly drowned when I was little. I got stuck under a railing of steps going into a swimming pool. Luckily, one of my mom's friends noticed I hadn't come up. I remember everything going dark though, and I had sepsis a couple of years ago, which was spread throughout all of my organs waist down. The doctor said if I hadn't come into the hospital when I did, I probably wouldn't have made it. The bonus of losing consciousness in accidents and emergencies is skipping the 8-hour waiting time. It hurt like hell before I lost consciousness though. I almost died at birth due to a doctor's F-up. They sent my husband down to the NICU, and while they thought it was totally unconscious, they discussed when to stop trying to save me and how to cover up what really happened so he didn't get sued. They said they were done working on me and to call in my family to say goodbye. I told them there was too much blood loss and they'd exhausted their efforts. I was in agonizing pain and my baby was hurt, so I didn't even get to see him before I was about to die. Somehow I survived the night, even though everyone had given up on me. We moved to the bush. We were heating with firewood only and underestimated the amount. So little old me goes out alone to just look if there are any dead trees to cut. I see one not far from the house. It was about minus 34 degrees Celsius, so I was moving as fast as possible. Lots of snow. Well, that snow was frozen like ice. I wasn't breaking through. Suddenly that changed. Snow had bridged a very small gully no more than 3 feet long, but the way I went in brought all the snow down on me. I passed out pretty fast. I came about 7 feet back from there, half my hair torn out and my GSD soaking down my face. I mostly crawled home with her logical boost the whole way. The family was suiting up when I reached the house. Sheba had just started freaking out, so they opened the door. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Ashrak's Miss Sheba, 93 to 99.